Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to be making this rainbow striped sweater. I'll be making a small in this video, but you can find sizes X small to 3X large in the written pattern that I linked down below. But here are the supplies you'll be needing. So to begin on this pattern, I have over here my 5.5mm hook and my category 4 yarn. I'm going to quickly make a slip knot, and you can do that any way you would like. And to begin this bottom border, we're going to make a chain of 9. So to make a chain, just want to yarn over and then just pull through. Again, yarning over and pulling through. And then after you finish this chain of 9, skipping this first chain and inserting our hook into the second chain, we're going to work a single crochet. So I'm going to insert my hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Into the next chain, inserting my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and then just working these single crochets into these 8 chains across. And so I just finished up this round of single crochets. Once I reach the end, I'm going to chain 1, turn my work around, and that chain 1 does not count as a stitch. So skipping this first chain and inserting our hook into this first stitch, we're going to be working into the back bars only for this row. So I'm going to insert my hook only into that back bar here, yarn over, pull up a loop, pull through 2. Again, into this back bar, pull up a loop, pull through 2, and then working these back bar single crochets into each stitch all the way down. And so I just finished up these back bar single crochets. Just like last time, chain 1, turn your work. And then to continue and finish up this bottom border, you want to repeat that row with the back bar single crochets until you have a total of 63 rows. But I'm going to work this one more time because we're already here. Why not? So I chained, turned my work, and then into this first stitch, working these back bar single crochets all the way down my row. And then once you reach the end, chain 1, turn your work. So again, just continue on repeating this row with the back bar single crochets, which is row 2, until you have a total of 63 rows. Okay guys, so I am back here with my 63 rows for my bottom border. And then once I reach the end here, I'm just going to chain 1, and then turn my work around. Then now we're going to be working across our border here with a foundation row of single crochets. So just beginning into this first row, I'm going to insert my hook, work 1 single crochet, and then into the next row, another single crochet, and then just as you normally would, just doing these single crochets coming all the way down your border, and by the end you should have a total of 63 stitches. And so I just did these single crochets coming all the way along my bottom border here. And I actually left 1 stitch unworked because we're actually going to be changing our yarn here. So to change yarn, I'm going to insert my hook into this very last stitch. I'm going to yarn over, pull through. You should have 2 loops on your hook. Now I'm going to grab our first color, which is our red yarn, put that over the hook, and then just pulling this through. And that's how we're going to change our yarn for each color. And I'm going to worry about cutting off this white yarn later. So now chain one with the red yarn, turn your work around, and then beginning into this first stitch here, single crochet, then chain one, skip a stitch, single crochet, chain one, skip a stitch, and then single crochet. Then this is going to be our stitch pattern for the rest of our bodice here. You just want to chain one, skip a stitch, and then single crochet into the next stitch, just as I am doing right here. Okay guys, so I just finished up this red color coming across my border with that stitch pattern. And then just as always, once I reach the end, I'm going to chain one, turn my work around. Then now just repeating the same thing, beginning into this first stitch, single crochet, chain one, skip that chain, single crochet, chain one, skip that chain here, and then single crochet. Then just continuing to work this all the way down my border here, and I will meet you back once I reach the end. And so I just finished up that row 2 over here. Just like last time, chain one, turn your work, and we're going to repeat that row one more time. So just working single crochet, skip a stitch, chain one, going all the way down your row. Then I will meet you back for the 4th row, which is just a little bit different. So I just made it back here with my 3rd row. I'm just going to begin the 4th row really quickly here by chaining and turning my work. Then now our 4th row is very similar. We're going to work our moss stitch all the way down our row here, except into this last stitch we're actually going to change our color. But I'm going to meet you back down once I reach the end to kind of show you how to do that one more time. We're just starting in here with a single crochet, chain one, skip, and then single crochet, then I'll meet you back. And so I have this one stitch remaining. We're going to have 4 rows for our red color. But into this last stitch, I'm going to insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, grabbing my orange color, because that's the next color, yarning over, pulling straight through those 2 loops. Then I'll just worry about cutting this off later. Now with this orange color, chain one, turn your work around. And then same thing like last time, you want to work 3 rows of this orange color. Then on that 4th row, you want to change your color to the yellow. But just to start you off here, beginning into this first stitch, single crocheting, chain one, skip a chain, single crochet, chain one, skip a chain. And then I'm going to do this for 3 more rows, and then on that 4th row, I'm going to show you how to change color one more time with our yellow yarn. And so I am back here with my 3 rows with this orange color. Then our 4th row is very similar but just a little bit different. I'm going to chain, turn my work, and just as we did with the red color, I'm going to work this moss stitch all the way down in my row. But into this last stitch, we're going to change our color, which is going to be yellow this time. But I will just meet you back at the end here. And so I work down my row until I have this 1 stitch remaining. I'm going to insert my hook into this last stitch, pull up a loop. I'm going to grab my yellow color because that's the next color of the rainbow, yarn over, pull through those 2 loops, and then grabbing this yellow yarn, chain one, turn your work around. So now I'm going to do the same thing as we did with the other two colors, working 3 rows, and then on that 4th row, change color into that last stitch. I'm going to be back with you once I finish this yellow color, then I'll kind of show you the next steps. But yeah, I'll be back in a bit. Okay guys, so I am back here with my 4 rows for my yellow color, and as you can see, into the last stitch of this 4th row, I switched to my next color, which is green. And then now to continue this pattern, you want to repeat this for each color. So we have red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. And you're going to repeat that pattern until you have a total of 60 rows for your front panel. So I'm going to work up my 60 rows, repeating these 6 colors of the rainbow. Then I will meet you back. Okay guys, so I am back here with my 60 rows, alternating my 6 colors, as you can see. And you should have ended on the color green. So we worked those 3 rows of the yellow color, and then on that 4th color, you should have switched out to your green. And this is what our bodice is looking like so far. It looks really good. And then now we're going to continue on to make this shoulder strap right over here. So let's get started on that. So beginning with our green color here, I'm going to chain 1, turn my work around, and then beginning into this first stitch, we're going to be working our moss stitch, except we're not going to go all the way across our row. We're only going to go into 25 stitches. So just beginning into here, I'm going to work this regular single crochet, chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet. And so I just finished up these 25 stitches. Once I reach the end, I'm of course just going to chain 1, flip my work all the way around here. Then beginning into this first stitch, we're going to work a decrease. So I'm going to insert my hook, pull up a loop, then into the next stitch, I'm going to insert my hook into here, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 3. And that's how we're going to do our decreases each time. So now single crochet, chain 1, skip, single crochet until you reach the end. And then once I reach the end here, chain, turn my work around. Then now we're going to be working a decrease at the end of this stitch. So I'm going to do that regular moss stitch all the way down my row until I have 2 stitches remaining at the end. And so I have 2 stitches remaining into these last 2 stitches. I'm going to insert my hook, pull up a loop, into this last stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 3. And so you should have done a decrease into this very last stitch. Now I'm going to chain 1, turn my work around, and then because this is our 4th row, we are going to change our color to the blue yarn into this last stitch. But first we're going to do another decrease. So I'm going to insert my hook, pull up a loop, into this next stitch, also pulling up a loop, yarn over, pull through 3, just like this. Then now single crochet, chain, skip, and then single crochet until the end. And so I just finished up this row. I have 1 stitch remaining into this last stitch. I'm going to insert my hook, pull up a loop. I've already cut it off at the end here. I'm going to grab my blue yarn, wrap that around, and then just pull this through. And now with our blue yarn, we're pretty much going to do the same thing with our decreases. I'm just going to decrease at the end on this side. So chain 1, turn your work around, and then beginning into this first stitch, we're going to do this moss stitch until we have 2 stitches remaining. Into those last 2 stitches, we're going to do a decrease, but I'll meet you at the end. And then once you reach the end here, into these last 2 stitches, I'm going to do another decrease. Just like this, chain 1, turn your work around. Now beginning into this first stitch, we're going to begin with another decrease. So I'm going to insert my hook. And then after this first decrease, just working down your row with that regular moss stitch as we have been doing. And then once I reach the end, chain, turn my work, just like this. And just like last time, I'm going to work down my row until I have 2 stitches remaining. And then into these last 2 stitches, just going to do that decrease really quickly. Then chain, turn your work around. And this is what our shoulder strap is kind of looking like. We've been decreasing on this one side, while this other side should be remaining straight over here. Then now we're going to change out our yarn for this row. But first we're going to do a decrease. So just into this first stitch, doing that first decrease. And then working this moss stitch until the end. Then right into this last stitch, I'm going to switch out my yarn for the purple yarn. And then after you finish working this down, as I just mentioned, I'm going to insert my hook into that last stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over with our next color, which is purple, pull that through right here. Now we just have 2 rows with this purple yarn just to finish this shoulder strap up. I'm going to turn my work around here. Then just like as we have been doing, I'm going to do the moss stitch all the way down my row until 2 stitches are remaining, then I'll do that decrease. And then I just made it to the end, so doing that decrease right into this last 2 stitches, chain 1, turn our work, and then this is our last row, which should be our 10th row here. So just to finish this up, we're going to do one last decrease into this first stitch. And then just finish up this moss stitch until the end, and then cut and fasten off. And then once I reach the end of my 10th row, just like I said, I'm just going to cut my yarn, oops, and then pull it straight through. So now you should have 10 rows in total for your shoulder strap. But now once this is all done, we're going to get started on the opposite side over here. So to start on the opposite shoulder strap over here, what I did is that I counted 13 stitches from the first worked stitch here, and then I inserted my hook into the 14th stitch, and then that's where we're going to begin our next shoulder strap. So then starting from this point, I'm going to yarn over, pull through, chain 1, and then just turn my work around. And then beginning into this first stitch here, so the one that we slip stitched into, we're just going to work our moss stitch all the way down until we reach the end. And then once I reach the end here, you should have a total of 25 stitches, just as we had for our other side. I'm just going to chain 1, just turn my work around here, and then now we're going to work down our row until we have those 2 stitches remaining, because then we're going to do another decrease. And then I have these 2 stitches over here. I'm going to do that decrease right into these last 2. And then after that decrease, chain 1, turn your work all the way around here. And then beginning into this first stitch, we're going to do another decrease. So just inserting my hook into that first stitch, then into that second stitch. And then after that decrease, chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet, and then continuing to work your moss stitch all the way till the end. And then once I reach the end, chain, turn your work. And now this is our 4th row, so we're going to go all the way down our work with that moss stitch until we have 2 stitches remaining. And then once we end here, we're going to decrease and we're going to change our color. And then I have these 2 stitches remaining once I reach the end here. I'm going to insert my hook into that next stitch, pull up a loop, into this last stitch, pull up a loop, 3 loops on my hook. Then now I'm going to grab my blue yarn and I'm going to change color, oops, then pull straight through those 3 loops, just like this. And then with the blue yarn, chain 1, and then turn my work around. And then now we're pretty much going to do the same thing, but with the blue color over here. So into this very first stitch, I'm going to do a decrease. And then now we're going to chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet until we reach the end. And then I'm going to chain 1, turn my work. Beginning into this first stitch, we're going to go all the way down my row until I have 2 stitches remaining at the end. And then into these last 2 stitches, I'm going to do that decrease, chain, and then turn my work. And then beginning into this first stitch here, I'm going to do another decrease, and then complete my moss stitch going all the way down until the end. And then once I reach the end, chain 1, turn my row. Now this is our 4th row or 8th row here. And we're going to do that same decrease, but then change our yarn to the purple yarn at the end. So into these last 2 stitches, I'm going to insert my hook, pull up a loop, into that last stitch, pull up a loop. Then from this point, I'm going to grab my purple yarn over, pull that through, then with the purple yarn, chain, and then turn my work around. Then into this first stitch, doing a decrease, into the next stitch, pull through 3, and then just completing this moss stitch until you reach the end, just as usual. And then I reach the end with this purple color, chain, turn my work around, and then I'm going to do this moss stitch until I have 2 stitches remaining, and then just do our last decrease on that side. And then here are the last 2 stitches with our very last decrease to complete our 10th row here. And then now once that's all done, I'm going to cut and tie off, and then I will meet you back. Okay guys, so once we have finished both of our side straps you cut and fastened off, that completes our entire front panel, and it looks really good so far. And then now you want to repeat this entire process one more time to form a second panel, because our back and our front panels are exactly identical. But over here I have already completed my second panel. Then once you have this, we're going to begin on the seaming. So to seam this together, it doesn't matter which way your panels are facing because they're both on the same side. But you can seam it using slip stitches or single crochets. And I'm going to be using the yellow yarn to seam this all up just because it's the lightest color we have. And then beginning into this corner, you want to seam again using slip stitches or single crochets across the shoulder strap over here. And then once again on this side, seaming across here for our shoulder strap. Once that is all set, you want to turn your work to the side. And I want to make a split in my work, so I'm going to start right here. And I'm going to seam all the way up the side here until I have 8 inches from the top completely unseamed, and that is going to leave room for our armhole. So again, I'm going to be leaving a split here, but you can seam the border if you want to. But then once one side is done, you want to repeat it on the opposite side. So seaming all the way up here until you have 8 inches from the top unworked. But I'm going to be back with you once I have finished all that up, then I will see you for the next steps. Alrighty guys, so I am back here with my work. All is seamed up on the sides and in the shoulder straps over here. And then now I turn my work back side out so that the seams are nicely hidden. And then once that is all done, we're going to go ahead and get started on the sleeves right over here. So now we're going to begin on the sleeve. I have my 5.5 millimeter hook, and this is my red yarn. I'm going to quickly make a slip knot. Then now we're going to begin this by making a chain of 56. And now I just finished up this chain of 56. So skipping this first chain and inserting my hook into this second chain, I'm going to single crochet, chain 1, skip a chain, and then single crochet, chain 1, skip a chain, and then a single crochet, and then just working our moss stitch all the way down our row until you reach the end. So I just finished up this moss stitch going all the way down my row. Once I reach the end, I'm going to chain 1, turn my work around. Then into this first stitch, I will single crochet, chain 1, skip that chain, single crochet, chain 1, skip that chain, and single crochet. And then repeating this all the way down my work. We're not going to do anything new at all, just doing our regular moss stitch. And then just as usual, I went all the way down my row. I'm just going to chain one, turn my work around, and then for row 3, we are going to repeat that row of our moss stitch. So just inserting our hook, doing a single crochet, chain, skip a stitch, and single crochet all the way down our row just as you normally would. And so now I am back there with this third row. So our fourth row is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to chain, turn my work. Then into this first 2 stitches, we're going to first work a decrease. I'm going to insert my hook, pull up a loop. Then into this next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 3. Just like this. Into the next stitch, single crochet, chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet, chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet, then just doing our moss pattern until we have 2 stitches remaining at the end, because we will do another decrease. So I have these 2 stitches remaining. I went all the way down my row. Then now into these last 2 stitches, I'm going to insert my hook, yarn over, pull through, then into that last stitch, yarn over, pull through. I have 3 loops on my hook now. I'm going to yarn over with our next color, which is the orange yarn. Pull that through those 3 loops. Chain 1 with the orange yarn, turn your work around. So now this next row is just a little different. Beginning into this first stitch, single crochet. And now instead of chaining 1, you want to single crochet into that next stitch as well. And then from here, chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet, chain 1, skip a stitch, and then single crocheting just as you normally would. And you just want to keep on doing this until you have 2 stitches remaining at the end. And so I just finished up going down my row with this orange color. Into these last 2 stitches here, I'm going to single crochet, and then single crochet again into this last stitch, chain 1, turn my work. Then now you want to repeat this row 2 more times until you have a total of 7 rows. So just to show you what that looks like, I'm going to single crochet into the first stitch, then also single crocheting into the second stitch, chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet, chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet, doing our moss stitch all the way down my row until you have 2 stitches remaining, making sure to single crochet twice into those last 2 stitches. But I will just meet you at the end of this row, then I will see you back. And so I just finished up coming to the end. I'm just going to single crochet twice. There's our first one, and then also into the last stitch as well. Chain 1, turn my work, and then now you want to repeat this row 1 more time until you have a total of 7 rows. And so I am back here with row 7. You should have worked 3 rows of this orange color. As always, chain 1, turn my row. In every 4th row, you want to do a decrease on both ends and change your color. So this is our 4th row, which is our 8th row here. I'm going to do a decrease, so I'm going to insert my hook, pull up a loop. Into that next stitch, pull up a loop, pull through 3. This time, I'm going to chain 1, skip, single crochet, chain 1, skip, and then single crochet all the way down my row until I have 2 stitches remaining for that last decrease. And then as you can see, I have these 2 stitches at the end remaining. I'm going to insert my hook, pull up a loop, into this next stitch, pull up a loop, 3 loops on my hook. We're going to grab our next color. We're going to grab our next color, of course, which is yellow. I'm going to yarn over with this, and then pull straight through. Then now with the yellow color, chain 1, turn your work around, and now our next 3 rows are really simple. We're going to single crochet into this first stitch, chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet, chain 1, skip a stitch, and this is going to be our regular stitch pattern, nothing fancy at all. I'm going to work all the way down my row with our moss stitch, then I will meet you back once I reach the end. And then once you reach the end over here, chain, turn your work, and then now you want to repeat this row with our moss stitch until you have a total of 11 rows. So I will just work that up, then I'll meet you back in a bit. And so I just made it back here with my 11 rows. You should have worked 3 rows of this yellow yarn. And then just as I said before, we want to decrease on the 4th row or every 4 rows, and then change our yarn into the last stitch. So to do our decreases for this last color, I'm going to insert my hook, pull up a loop, into the next stitch, pull up a loop, then pull through 3. Now we're going to single crochet into the next stitch, chain 1, skip, single crochet, and then doing this all the way down our row until we have 2 stitches remaining. And so I have these 2 stitches at the end. I'm going to insert my hook and then do these decreases, or just this one decrease. Then I have 3 loops on my hook. I'm going to go for our next color, which is green. Then I'm just going to yarn over and pull this through, just like that. Then using this green yarn, chain 1, turn our work around. So now to continue this pattern, you want to repeat those last 8 rows, which is row 5 to row 12, until you have a total of 24 rows. But I'm going to work these 8 rows with you one more time just to kind of show you what I mean here. So with this green color, I'm going to single crochet, and then this is a little bit different because we're also going to single crochet into the next stitch as well, and then chain 1, single crochet, and then just working this moss stitch all the way down your row. And then once you have these 2 stitches at the end, you want to single crochet to that second to last stitch, and then also into this last stitch, chain 1, turn, and then now you want to repeat that row until you have a total of 15 rows. And I will work that off camera, then I will meet you back. And so I just finished my 15th row, and you should have done 3 rows for your green color, and then on the 4th row we will do our decreases and then switch our yarn for the blue yarn in the last stitch. So to do our decrease, I'm going to insert my hook, do this decrease into the first stitch, and then chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet, chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet, until you've gone all the way down your row and have 2 stitches remaining. And so I have these 2 stitches at the end. I'm going to insert my hook into this second to last stitch, pull up a loop, into this last stitch, pull up a loop, 3 loops on my hook. I'm going to yarn over with our next color, which is of course blue, and then pull this straight through. Chain 1, turn our work. Then now our next 3 rows are really easy. Into this first stitch, single crochet, chain 1, skip, single crochet, chain 1, skip, and then just doing this all the way down your row. And then after you finish coming all the way down your row here, I'm just going to chain and then turn my work around. Then now you want to repeat this row until you have a total of 19 rows, which I will work off camera, then I'll meet you back. Okay guys, so I just finished up my 19th row. And then now moving on to our 4th row for this blue color, we're going to do our decreases. So I'm going to insert my hook, pull up a loop, into this next one, oops, pulling up another loop, yarn over, pull through 3, then single crochet into the next stitch, chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet, and then just doing our moss stitch until we have 2 stitches remaining. And so I finished going all the way down my row. I will do my decrease and change my yarn out. And then yarning over with our next color, which is of course purple, pulling straight through, chain 1, turn our work. And so I said you had to repeat those last 8 rows, which is row 5 till row 12, until you had a total of 24 rows. But we just finished our 20th row, so basically I'm just going to do this last color, and then I will meet you back for the 25th row. Alrighty guys, so I am back here with my 24 rows. I ended on the color red for my 4th row over here. And then you can kind of see where we did our decreases, kind of coming along the side here. And then now our next rows, we're not going to do any kind of decreases. It is going to be really simple and straightforward. So let's just get started over there. So I am starting my 25th row with this red color. I'm going to chain 1, turn my work, and again, as I mentioned, this is very straightforward. Into this first stitch, single crochet, chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet, and then we're just going to be working our regular moss pattern all the way down until the end. And so I just finished up working down my row with this moss pattern, doing nothing unusual, just doing our regular pattern. I'm going to chain, turn my work, and then now you want to repeat this row until you have a total of 27 rows. So I will just go off camera, work up my 27 rows, then I will meet you back very shortly. So I have just finished up my 27 rows, and then going on to my 28th row, I chained and turned my work. And then now you just want to work your regular moss stitch pattern until you have 1 stitch remaining at the end of this, because we're going to be changing our yarn for the next color. And so I made it to the end of my row. Into this last stitch, I'm going to insert my hook, pull up a loop, grab my next color, yarn over, and then pull through those 2 loops. And then now to continue this pattern and just to finish up our sleeve, you want to repeat those last 4 rows, which basically just means you're going to be changing color every 4th row until you have a total of 57 rows for your entire sleeve. So I'm going to go off camera, work up my 57 rows, and then I will meet you back when I am all finished. Alrighty guys, so I am back here with my rows. As you can see, this is where we did our decreases, and then we went straight up from here. And I have 57 rows in total, which means that you should have ended on the color yellow. So now we're going to seam this together, and to do that, you just want to flip over your sleeve right in half. And then you just want to seam along the edge here, which is really easy. And then after that, you just flip your work back side out, and then we're going to attach this to our bodice. But I'm going to finish up seaming this, then I will meet you back. Okay guys, so I am back here with my sleeve all seamed up, looking really good so far. Then now we're almost done. We are now going to begin on the cuff on this end. So to begin on the cuff here, I switched my 5.5mm hook with a 4.5mm hook, and I went ahead and grabbed my white yarn. I'm going to slip stitch to secure here. Then now I'm going to take this, insert it right into the seam of our sleeve, yarn over, pull through to secure, chain 1, and then turn my work around. And to begin, we're going to do a foundation row of single crochets coming all the way around our cuff here just to start off. So just right into this first stitch, single crochet, then inserting my hook into that next row, single crochet, and then just doing this all the way around. And then once you made it all the way around your sleeve, I'm going to slip stitch into this first stitch to join this foundation row. And now from this point, chain 9. And then once you finish this chain of 9, beginning into the second chain, you want to work single crochets into these 8 chains across. And then once you reach the end of this row, slip stitch up 2 on the side to join. That's 1 slip stitch, and then into the next stitch as well, 2, and then turn your work around. Now for the rest of your cuff, you want to work back bar or back loop single crochets. So to begin that, I'm going to skip these first 2 stitches, insert my hook into this third stitch, and I'm going to only insert into this back bar, pull through 2. Again, into the next stitch, only going to go into this back bar, pull through 2, and then just doing this into the 8 stitches across. And then once you reach the end, chain, turn your work around, moving on to row 3, skipping this first chain, inserting my hook into this first stitch, doing these back bar single crochets into the 8 stitches across. And then once you reach the end here, you want to do the same thing as last time, slip stitch up 2 stitches on the side to join this row. That is 1, and then into the next stitch as well, just like this. And then to continue your cuff, you want to repeat those last 2 rows, which is row 2 and row 3, until you have worked into each stitch all the way around. But I'm going to do this 2 more times with you just to kind of show you what I mean. So I'm going to turn my work around, then inserting my hook into this third stitch. You want to do back bar single crochets into each stitch all the way down. And then once you reach the end, chain, turn your work, and then beginning into the first stitch, doing back bar single crochets, and then we're going to slip stitch up to once we reach the end. And then I'm at the end here. I'm just going to go ahead, slip stitch up 2 to join this row. And as I just mentioned before, repeat row 2 and row 3 until you've worked into each stitch all the way around your cuff. And I will go off camera, work that up, and then I'll meet you back to seam this up. Okay guys, so I am back here with my cuff, as you can see. I repeated row 2 and row 3 into each stitch all the way around here. We're almost done. All we have to do is seam these 2 edges up, and to do that I will just turn my sleeve inside out and then just seam down these 2 edges using slip stitches or single crochets. Then I will cut and fasten off once I reach the end. But I will quickly seam this up, then I will meet you back in a little bit. Alrighty guys, so I have just finished up my entire sleeve. I finished up seaming my cuff and all the way down here. And then once you have finished this, you want to make a second sleeve, and then we're going to move on to attaching this to our bodice. So attaching our sleeve to the bodice is fairly simple. I will seam using the red color yarn, and I will turn my sleeve inside out and my bodice inside out. Then I will align our sleeve right to our armhole over here. Then I will just seam around using slip stitches or single crochets like we have been doing. Then I will just turn all my work back side out. Then of course you want to repeat that process on the other side as well for your second sleeve. So I will work that up, then I will meet you back shortly. And I am back here. I just finished up seaming my sleeve to our bodice, and it looks really good so far. And then now I did the other side as well. And then once we have both of our sleeves, we're going to get started with our last part, which is the collar over here. So getting started on the collar, I have my white yarn, and this is my 4.5mm hook. I'll just quickly go ahead and make a slip knot. And now this is actually really easy. We're going to first make a chain of 6. And then after you finish this chain of 6, beginning into the second chain, work single crochets into these 5 chains. And then once you reach the end, chain and then turn your work around. Skipping this first chain, inserting our hook into this first stitch, we're going to work back bar single crochets into these 5 stitches. And then once you reach the end with these back bar single crochets, chain and then turn your work. Then now this is really simple. You just want to repeat this row, which is row 2, until your collar is 66 rows long. But just to work this one more time, skipping this first chain, inserting my hook into this first stitch, just doing these back bar single crochets into these 5 stitches, and then chain and turn your work. So I'm going to work up these 66 rows for my collar, then I will meet you back. Okay guys, so I am back here with my 66 rows, repeating those back bar single crochets all the way up. And then when I cut and tied off, I made sure to leave about 3 feet of yarn, and then I wove my tapestry needle through this so that we can use that end to kind of seam our collar to our base here. So now what I'm going to do is just wrapping this around the edge here, making sure to do it very evenly. And then using my tapestry needle, we're going to seam the collar to the base. So just beginning right here, I'm going to insert my hook into these back loops. Then I'll just pull it straight through. And then coming back around, and then pulling straight through. And then just doing this until we reach the end. And so I just joined my collar together, and then from here I'm going to go downwards into this back loop and then connect it to my base and then pull through, and then coming into the next stitch, again only going to these back loops, I'm going to go straight through, and then you just want to do this all the way around the base of your collar. Alrighty guys, so I am back here with my collar. It looks really good. I seamed all the way around here to my base, then I cut and tied off once I reached the end. And then you're pretty much all done with your project. The last thing you would need to do is just weave in all of your loose ends to make it look really nice and clean. But yeah, that is the last step. If you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel. If you bought this pattern, it would be super helpful if you left a positive review. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Bye!